Welcome everybody to the webinar which is hosted by the BDO Oman, UAE and Bahrain offices jointly. The focus of the webinar for today is how to manage the VAT compliances for the respective jurisdictions, and overall if you are a central team managing the VAT compliances out of one of the GCC countries. So the focus is going to be mainly upon the process to manage VAT compliance. Before we move on, little bit of about BDO. BDO globally is the fifth largest firm. Uh, we have offices in 167 countries globally. We have about 90,000 plus people working with us globally, and we are, there in the Middle East, in almost all of the countries, and supporting our clients at the jurisdictional level. As far as the speakers for the today go, as means the webinar is mainly going to be focused upon VAT compliances. We have, curated a team who has specialized in VAT compliances or GST compliances, if not two, three jurisdictions globally. So our team, who I call as the VAT compliance champions on the ground, have worked with not only one jurisdiction but multiple jurisdictions. So from our UAE office, we have Amrita Chandwani. From our Bahrain office, we have Devina Ogle, and from Oman office, we have Deepak Yadav. And last means I will be the presenter for most of the webinar for today. My name is Ashish Athavle. I am the tax partner for BDO Oman, Bahrain, and UAE. So with this, I move on to the next slide, where, as I spoke, that I have given a brief roundout about the speakers for today. Each of the people, as I said, have worked on a number of jurisdictions on the ground and supporting clients for filing VAT returns on a day-to-day basis. That is, of course, their day job, and they have specialized into their service offering for a number of years. What is going to be the agenda for the webinar for today? So I am just going to quickly focus upon how the VAT has progressed in the GCC member states till now. Then I am going to touch upon what are our experiences of working in the region when it comes to the VAT compliances. And then I will be highlighting certain common VAT compliance challenges, and this is, coming from the working experience of the three countries put together. So I will be calling upon the speakers on the webinar, where I will be asking them a few questions which will cover the practical aspects about a VAT compliance, how they are supporting their clients on a particular thing. So the focus or the webinar will be in a question and answer form, where each of the BDO staff for the respective jurisdictions will be focusing upon the practical aspects of this. Then I will go into that, what are the challenges and how a BDO as a firm working across the region will be in a position to support you for this offering, and what do we offer when we mean by VAT compliance outsourcing. So the takeaway for the presentation is that we will be taking you through the challenges and giving our solution on that, or how we are going to manage or support you to meet the VAT compliance obligation overall. So before we get into the details of the call for today, quickly, as we all know that the VAT in the GCC member states has come on the basis of a common framework. The framework was signed back in the day, I would say, where all the countries were supposed to go live on 1st of January 2017, but it came on to 1st of January 2018 when UAE and KSA were the first two countries to go live with the VAT. Then we saw Bahrain going live on 1st of January 2019. And then we came to Oman, which is very recent, which is 16th of April 2021. Now, out of the six, four of the GCC member states have a VAT that has gone live. Out of the four, three have done a phased implementation. One, which is UAE, has done a VAT go live on one day. So this all put together, I would say, is causing a lot of challenges for our regional clients who are working in more than one jurisdictions within the GCC. They have to keep realigning the positions, okay, that they have taken from the past, because of the reasons that I'm going to go through in the next slide. But each of the jurisdictions, needs to be evaluated separately. Right now, four of the six are live. Once all the six go live, there will be a need to revisit the either transaction mapping or the various work or the either technical positions that the regional businesses have taken. So as we move ahead, we will see Qatar and Kuwait go live with a VAT. And once that happens, maybe there could be a need to revisit all the technical positions on the ground. With this background, as we know that VAT is going to be treated differently in each of the GCC member states, we have come down to certain specific identified areas which are totally different from each of the jurisdictions. First, but the major one, that each of the jurisdictions have a different VAT law of their own. The regulations are very different. What you can claim as a credit, what is the wording of the regulations from a recoverability of the credit procedure, that all completely depends upon the jurisdiction that you are in. So if you have your VAT processes figured out, say for a UAE, and if you have a presence in, say, Bahrain, then you need to revisit all of that from the local jurisdiction side. This will be not limited to just revisiting the processes, but you may have to at times revisit the technical positions also, as we have come to a place where the VAT rate is also not common. So suppose if my clients in Oman are dealing with a client from Saudi Arabia, okay, they have to look at how the VAT works over there also if they are going to create a presence over there. So just to put it short, GCC VAT is a myth. The VAT will be driven at each of the individual jurisdictions wherever you are placed, and you need to look at the compliance obligations of each of the countries separately. Like Oman being the recent one, they have come up with a concept called as a responsible person, which ideally means that a person who is present in Oman having a civil ID or a resident ID can only act as a responsible person. And there are onuses like the responsible person cannot leave the country for a number of days and stuff like that. And last but not the least, what we have seen is that the treatment of sectors is completely different when it comes to each of the GCC member states. So suppose if you are a healthcare provider, you have a finalized position, say for a UAE, but you also have got a business here in Oman, you may have to revisit all of that. Secondly, there are minor nuances which may differ from a country to country. Like when it comes to a UAE, we have got a concept of a free zone. Oman also has got a concept of a free zone. But UAE, from a VAT law side, there are carve out zones named as designated zones for a VAT law perspective, which enjoy a VAT free, say, kind of a status. But when we come to here in Oman, we have got a concept of free zone, but the treatment of a designated zone in UAE vis-a-vis the treatment of a designated zone or a free zone in Oman is totally different. So it might be driven by the sector. it might be driven by the supply chain that you have. So I would say that if you would have done a VAT, a study, a VAT kind of an impact and an analysis at a GCC regional level, when each of the countries going live, I have seen my clients now coming back to you and say that, okay, I have done this back in 2017-18 at a UAE level, but I need to revisit this from an Oman side, and that is the place where we are adding a lot of value, because each of the jurisdictions, be it Bahrain or for that matter UAE also, as we all know that the VAT law for each of the jurisdictions has come 6 months in advance. The regulations for each of the jurisdictions have just come before the go live date, not even a month. So if that be the case, if you have done a regional study, say out of a UAE, the laws of UAE have also evolved over a period of time where each and every position needs to be revisited, because there are clarifications, there are various guides. Say for Bahrain, we have seen so many guides released after the go live date. So we have to work with those clients to realign the positions from the perspective of the guides. Otherwise, we are going to land up in a situation where we could have taken some kind of a position from the reading of the law or the regulations, but maybe guide goes to a greater detail and tries to clarify that what is the position on the ground. So with this, I would like to move on to my next slide, where we have tried to highlight that what is going to be the treatment of each of the sectors in the jurisdictions. And I have, for the purpose of the webinar, we have taken three over here. So UAE, Bahrain, and Oman. I will go through only key sectors over here, and I would like to spend some time on oil and gas sector step down providers. A lot of our clients are in this space who provide the services to the oil and gas sector overall. But while the output of oil and gas is zero rated almost in all of the GCC countries, being the main revenue driving force, but the service providers or the suppliers to the oil and gas space may not get a zero rating or may not have any kind of a special treatment over there. So what we have seen for Bahrain is that the complete oil and gas supply chain, okay, has been put into the category of zero rated, where if you are making a supply to the oil and gas companies, there are certain conditions to be followed, but whether the client of yours is into upstream, midstream, or a downstream, that will be zero rated. Now when I compare this to UAE has not given any specific treatment over there, and suppliers to the oil and gas space, be it of services and goods, they qualify in the category of a 5%. When I come to Oman, Oman has taken the middle ground of two. Oman says that if you are in the oil and gas sector and you are providing services or supplies to the oil and gas upstream or a midstream, that could be considered as a zero rated. Now, Oman has put a lot of conditions which are much stringent than a Bahrain, but the zero rating is still there. From an Oman side, I would say that the law is still in an evolving phase where most of our clients have gone ahead and continued with a position of a 5% till the time the conditions associated with a zero rating are completely clarified. The next one I would like to focus on is on financial services. As all of us know that financial services, if it is a margin or a profit based, say kind of a product, it will be considered as exempted. But if a bank is earning any kind of a fee, some kind of credit charges, some charges and all, those are going to be liable to VAT. Now, this has been the consistent view for UAE and Bahrain, but here in Oman, they have put a condition over there specifically saying that these financial services should be provided by a licensed financial institution only. So suppose if you're a group company, you are getting a loan at the group level, and you on a regular basis give this loan to the group company, and you will be charging an interest. So it will be worthwhile to evaluate that what will be the treatment of this interest, that whether you qualify for that exemption as you qualify as a financial services will be a thing that we need to evaluate for you specifically. The next item, and where there could be a lot of confusion, is going to be the basic food items. Now, when the VAT law came into a UAE, and for that matter, a KSA also, the basic food items did not have a specific zero rating or anything like that. But as VAT went live in Bahrain, the Bahrain came up with a 97 odd list where these food items were specifically zero rated. When it came to Oman, Oman also started with a similar list, but here in Oman we have 488 items which are going to qualify as a zero rated. So if you look from a regional trade side, if I have a client in Oman supplying say a food item which is zero rated as per the Oman list, if the product goes to a UAE, that could be liable to VAT. That could be liable to VAT under a reverse charge over there. May not be a payment in cash, but yes, there could be a situation where basic food items also form into a totally different, say, category over here. The next one is to do with real estate, as we see that in the UAE, and for that matter in a Bahrain also, the real estate has been given a preferential treatment. Most of the aspects related to new buildings, or if it is a new construction, most of the jurisdictions have a zero rating. Unfortunately, in Oman, this is not the case. Okay, if it is going to qualify as a residential part of the leasing, it will qualify as exempted. If it is a first sale of a property, we will need to see that what will be the treatment of the VAT over that. And then there are few sectors like in education, healthcare, where we see similar kind of a treatment going in for a UAE and a Bahrain, but when it comes to Oman, these categories have put in the category of exempted, which means that for a UAE and a Bahrain, while VAT is not going to apply on school fees, the school is still in a position to claim it as a refund from the government. But when it comes to Oman, this may raise up the prices of the school fees finally, because the school will not be in a position to claim an input VAT credit. So these are the two sectors, education and healthcare, where we see something different being done into Oman. So just to summarize this slide overall, as you can see that the VAT laws in the region are based upon a common framework, but the laws of each of the jurisdiction have come up with certain nuances. Okay, I would say that sector as a overall, or there are certain conditions to be satisfied at each of the jurisdictional levels, which if you are a regional business, you are a family driven business where you have a businesses spread across through the GCC, each of the jurisdictions has to be evaluated separately. And this is a place where BDO with our regional teams, as you can see on the call, will be able to provide you the guidance that what are the practices that are being followed. Like here in Oman, we have the law, we have got the regulations, but a lot of things are evolving as of today. Like, there is a concept called as a JSRS in Oman, which is needed for all those providers to the oil and gas space. Whether that is going to suffice for the perspective of the zero rating in the oil and gas space is going to be a debatable thing. So this needs to be certainly checked with the regional teams. The last but not the least, what I wanted to highlight overall on this slide is that once you have a VAT registration in a UAE, and if you are going to do a business in Oman, that doesn't mean that you are not exposed to a VAT registration in Oman. If you are going to have some kind of a project which is going to be driven where you are going to be liable to a VAT under what we call as a forward charge, then you are also obligated to get a non-resident VAT registration. So if you are a service provider from a UAE to a Bahrain, or from a UAE to an Oman, or for that matter vice versa also, the obligation of getting registered locally has to be evaluated. Means while the concept of a reverse charge, and if it is a business to business supply, then you don't need a VAT registration, is the thing that we have seen in the past. But yes, this has to be evaluated, squared off, and stored by way of a documentation. So suppose if there is a scrutiny in the future and you are getting, some kind of a questioning from the local tax departments, you should have an answer to that you have evaluated this. Next slide is all about the VAT compliances. Okay, as each of the jurisdictions are unique, okay, there are unique reporting formats also. So if you have your ERPs, say, geared up for a UAE, okay, when it comes to a Bahrain or an Oman, you may have to revisit that from a reporting side as well, because the fields are also not common what you need to report. I would say that there is a 90% commonality, okay, what goes as a part of the reporting. But each of the jurisdictions have certain reporting requirements which could be unique. As you can see on the slide, that we have only focused on the UAE and the Bahrain forms for now, because the form for Oman is not out. And what we wanted to highlight as the differences over here, that when it comes to a UAE, as you can see on the slide, you need to report as per the emirate that you are in. And when it comes to Bahrain being a small place, there is no specific requirement as such. The second point, that is a crucial point from a cash flow perspective and also from a reporting perspective, is that we have seen for UAE that the VAT that you pay as a part of the customs duty, referred to as import VAT, gets ideally auto-populated when you come to a UAE. Of course, the auto population may or may not be correct. You might have to go back and check it, and if there are any discrepancies, you have an option to claim more or less a VAT credit over there as well. But when it comes to Bahrain, this is not getting auto-populated. So the return has to be, filed in a manual manner, where you consolidate all these amounts from, the records or from the bill of entries that you have. And ideally, the VAT payment also for Bahrain, as a part of the customs duties, is made in cash. The option to get a deferral is there under the law, but for Bahrain, it has not gone live. When I take all of this to Oman, as of today, the concept of a deferral for the purpose of import VAT has now started. We will wait and watch how the process is going to evolve. But from an Oman side, also there could be a requirement where this number could be filled in manually as we go ahead. So the key point that we wanted to drive over here on this slide, as you can see, that there are certain unique reporting requirements by the jurisdiction. So when we come to a Bahrain, you need to report purchases from non-registered, zero-rated and exempted also. While this is not going to have an impact on your VAT liability or the return overall, but this is a data which the government in Bahrain is going to track. And few of our clients have also got a questioning on that, where we had to submit the serial number, I mean the 12 over here, to give the details, so that the government can go behind those bodies and see that why they have not got a VAT registration. So I would say that the requirement to report these things is there in a Bahrain, and it is not there in a UAE. So depending upon the jurisdiction, each of the things are going to change. Now, one more point I wanted to highlight on this slide specifically is that, as you can see, that the return is not a very detailed reporting. The return is, I would say, in a summary form, where you need to report the gross number of the purchases and sales. You come to VAT liability, you reduce the credit, and you make a payment. So that is what the form is. But what most of our clients miss out is that with this form, there are the backup registers to be maintained. Depending upon the jurisdiction, the average, the time frame where they need to maintain the documentation is somewhere in the year of 10. So with a return, there should be registers, outward, inward, and various things that you need to maintain along with each and every documentation. As we know that a VAT return, or a VAT gets hit at the transaction level. So each and every document on which you are going to recover a credit, be it a bill of entry, you should be in a position to retain it, be soft copy fine. But when there is an assessment in the future, you should be in a readily manner in a position to give this. So I would say that your VAT compliance function, okay, does not just end at filing a VAT return. Once you file a VAT return, the supportings that go for a VAT return have also been retained in a common place and have to be stored for a period of 10 years on an average. So suppose if there is a query from an FTA or an NBR or from here in Oman, you are in a position to quickly give all of this. See, a number of years we all have worked in a multiple jurisdictions where you are going to face a tax inspector. The half of the work is done if you are able to provide your data with a lot of confidence and quickly. If you take a lot of time, okay, to provide the data, and if you lose the confidence of the officer might always feel that there is something that the client is trying to hide. So to get over this, I would say, softer aspect, all the backup documentation along with the samples of the listing should ideally be ready. So if there is a questioning in the future, this can be provided right away. Now, I have given, means what are the nuances, how the reporting is going to be different. So at this point of time, I will call upon from my UAE office, and I just wanted to check that why VAT compliance function overall is a very crucial one. So welcome, Amrita, if you are there, would you be able to answer this, that why VAT compliance is such a crucial function?
Yes, Ashish. So VAT is a self-assessment tax. The onus lies upon the businesses to get the VAT reporting right. And VAT impacts key functions of the business like working capital, business cost, and the compliance with the local regulations. When it comes to working capital, it impacts all kinds of businesses who are in a refundable position and businesses who are in a payable position. For refundable businesses, it's necessary to get the return correct so that they can file the refund and get the refund from the tax authorities in time. For payable businesses, there is a cash outflow on account of VAT payment. So for them also, it's necessary that they do the calculations correctly. When it comes to errors and omissions, if a business gets any misses out on transaction or gets the treatment of transaction incorrectly, and they file a revised return, there are potential fines for revision of returns. So it impacts the business cost on account of VAT. And lastly, like you discussed, audits. Businesses need to maintain records for a period of 5 to 10 years. So it's necessary to get the returns right in the first place and keep the records in a detailed format along with supporting documents so that when there is an audit 5 years or 10 years down the line, they don't have to go back and dig the details and find out what was reported and why it was reported in a certain way.
Okay, so thank you. I believe you have, tried to summarize all the points that I spoke in the last few minutes. But what I clearly can see over here is that, the second point, as a VAT compliance is going to be the point when you are going to report a liability and you are going to actually make a VAT payment to the government. So that is a place where you should be focusing on that you are not paying more or less. You can, of course, pay less by getting more VAT credits. And to get a VAT credit, the document is a very crucial thing. Okay, I would say I would compare it to like a currency kind of a document. So with this, I just wanted to check with you, Amrita, that what are the areas that a business should focus on from the sales side, that as we need to report a consolidated number in a VAT return as one gross number, but we have observed that clients struggle with coming to that kind of a number also. So what will be the areas on the sales side which play a very crucial role when it comes to a VAT compliance?
Correct, Ashish. So what we submit to the tax authorities is a consolidated number or a summary uh, figure that you give to the authorities for each category of sales. Let's say standard rated sales, zero rated sales, and exempt sales. But to arrive at that number, there are different aspects that the businesses need to consider. For example, the tax point, what value has to be reported, and do you have sufficient documents to prove the treatment that you have adopted. Also, this has to, in case of a tax group, you have to take additional care because you have to consider the treatment and the transaction of all the group members. Now, to determine whether the treatment of transaction is standard rated, exempt, or zero rated, you actually need to dig down and understand the nature of transaction and whether it is eligible for any benefit like zero rating or exemption. When it comes to tax point, what we have usually seen businesses do is focus only on invoicing. They miss to consider any advances received. But VAT in all the three jurisdictions and generally is a mix of accrual and cash basis. So it's earlier of invoicing or cash payment received from your customer or client that you have to report VAT on that transaction. Lastly, value of supply, it's generally straightforward, but when it comes to transactions with non-monetary consideration, where there's a barter element involved, generally people miss out to report these transactions, but these are transactions which have to be considered from a sales point of view and have to be reported correctly in the VAT return. Having said all this,
Okay.
this all has to
Mhm.
be supported by proper documentation, tax invoices, export documents, contracts to prove what you have done is right or not. And what we have seen, compliances become easier if the IT system of businesses can generate a detailed report uh, uh, based on the accounting that the team does for each of the transactions. So it makes compliance is easier for businesses, and also the record keeping is more detailed and easy.
Okay. So if I can just summarize, I could capture two key things over here. One is to do with the technical positions. Whatever be the technical positions you as a company or a group have taken, they need to be reported properly when it comes to a compliances. When it comes to the sales side, I cannot be reporting something as a 5% if I am sure that I have raised an invoice with a zero rated. So the technical positions getting captured as a part of the VAT returns is a very crucial thing. And the second thing, as you said, the focus on the documentation. Like for most of the jurisdictions, we have observed that in case of export of goods, there is a need to see that the goods have left, goods have left the country within a particular period of time. And depending upon whose a bayan number or a customs code is used, it will be very significant activity that a business has to conduct in order to continue the zero rating, that you have got a visibility and a stamp from a customs of respective jurisdictions that the goods have ideally left a particular geography. So this, I believe, is a very crucial thing from the sales side. Now, for the purchase side, I would like to, call upon my colleague from the Bahrain office, Devina. So, what do you think is a crucial aspect that a business should be focusing from the purchase side? And I believe that most of the things are going to be pretty common, but if you have a certain specific observations for a Bahrain.
Sure. So the main area of focus for any business should be input tax credit, which has a direct impact on the VAT liability or refundable position. And for this, businesses should make sure that they capture critical information like the tax invoice number, the vendor registration number, the vendor registration details in their purchase registers. They need to identify the portion of input tax which is eligible as a credit and which needs to be expensed out. Particularly, this point is important when it comes to claiming credit for any employee related expenses or businesses who are engaged in exempt supplies as well as taxable supplies. The next point would be that they should be in a possession of and they should regularly check the VAT compliant documents, whether it be the tax invoice they are getting from the vendor or the bill of entry, the payment receipt. Particularly in Bahrain, where a CR has multiple branches to it, the VAT registration certificate is always issued in the name of the main branch. So businesses need to ensure that the tax invoices which they are receiving from the vendor has the details captured as per the VAT certificate issued by the tax authority to avoid any loss of credit. Then businesses should, also regularly revisit the credit which they have claimed. This will particularly apply where there is, regular fluctuation in the exempt supplies and taxable supplies, which will, disturb the proportional deduction ratio if I look at it at an annual basis. If there is going to be a change in the use of any capital assets, then again a tax adjustment needs to be done. Particularly for the retail and wholesale sector, NBR has issued a detailed guidance note where they have come up with additional compliances so that businesses don't need to do a reversal of the input credit in case there is any disposal of obsolete stock or there is a situation of any damaged, lost, or theft in the business. Separately, another important point would be that businesses need to check the applicability of reverse charge mechanism, particularly the businesses which regularly import services or procure services from the foreign vendors. And Ashish, as you highlighted, that Bahrain is unique where businesses are required to report the purchases from non-registered vendors, zero-rated and exempted. This reporting also needs to be accurately made in the return.
Okay, okay. So as I can see over here that, I would say the onus to, have the documentation is more so on the purchase side. And what I wanted to check over here with you, Divina, that what all you said from a documentation perspective, have you seen that NBR will actually come back and ask for samples of documents?
Yes, we have seen that taking place in Bahrain as we speak, where NBR has, already commenced the audit and assessment for multiple taxpayers. And usually these samples of, say, a vendor tax invoice or the bill of entry is called as a regular procedure of audit.
Understand. So our clients have to maintain all the documents mandatorily, whatever be they have done at the time of the compliances, but the document maintaining is a non-negotiable thing from an audit perspective as well.
Absolutely. And even the VAT law in Bahrain mentions a timeline of 10 years for maintaining the documents.
Wow. A lot of obligations actually on the purchase side. So I will move on to my next one, the area that I wanted to highlight and ask to my UAE team and the Bahrain team, starting with the Bahrain team, that, once we are going to finalize a computation, okay, the return is ready. Okay, how do we go ahead with making a payment? Because what we have observed that for the jurisdictions, especially the multinational clients who may not have local people on the ground at each and every jurisdiction, we need to share with them a compliance calendar and we need to plan ahead. So, what would be the process to make a payment from a Bahrain side to start with, and then we will go to a UAE?
So in Bahrain, the VAT liability payment can be made only after submission of the return. Once the return is submitted, a bill will be generated from the NBR website. This bill will carry a unique bill number which needs to be used for making the payment. And the payment platforms in Bahrain are through the Fawatir facility, which can be accessed over online banking, mobile banking, or mobile application, or by visiting the bank branch. Recently, there is an additional, payment platform which has been launched, where the payment can be made through a debit card and a credit card, and it will immediately go to NBR. What we have, Ashish, particularly seen in Bahrain is that there were many instances where a VAT liability payment made within the deadline was rejected by NBR because the bill number which was entered was incorrect. So businesses should time the VAT submission, keeping in mind the approval timelines also, which they may need to manage for making the payment to NBR.
Okay. So when we, do like a comparative to that of a UAE, how means the payment or the filing process is different for a UAE? Amrita?
Luckily, in UAE, you don't have to wait to file your return to make the payment of VAT. So there are three modes of VAT payment. The first one is a e-dirham card. The second one is credit card, and the third one is bank transfers. And bank transfers can be done through your bank account or any exchange house, which usually provides these services. When it comes to e-dirham and credit card, the amount is almost immediately reflected in the account after the process of payment. When it comes to bank transfers, domestic bank transfers generally take a one working day, and international bank transfers can take anywhere between 1 to 3 working days if your bank is outside UAE. So from payment perspective, it's pretty clear, and we haven't seen any issues in payment if you are doing it within the timelines provided.
Sure, sure. So both the jurisdictions obviously have a different process, I would say. And when it comes to making the payment in time, obviously the lead time, so having a compliance calendar backward from the last point, at least when it comes to a filing of the return and making the payment, a compliance calendar for each of the periods, whether be month or be it a quarter, it should be completely kept into a place so we don't land up in a situation where we have done all good work, a client has also done all the good work, but we are not able to pay in time. And we have observed a lot of practical cases, specifically for the foreign clients. So we wanted to bring this to the knowledge of our audience. The next one is, for both the jurisdictions, given that VAT compliance, I would say, has been, routine for the UAE office as well as for a Bahrain office. What are the common mistakes that we have observed that our clients do for the purpose of filing a VAT return? And for this, I will start with the Bahrain office.
Sure. So, Ashish, the general tendency of businesses is to overlook the areas where there is no VAT impact, in the sense that there is no VAT output or VAT input which will be affected. And from the sales side, I would say these areas are exports, zero rated domestic sales, and exempt. For this, businesses should ensure that they are in possession of the relevant documentation based on which this kind of an exemption or zero rating has been claimed. When it comes to the purchases, like we saw that Bahrain has the field for reporting a reverse charge mechanism when it comes to services which are taken from foreign vendors, and also for reporting the purchases from non-registered taxpayers. What we have observed in Bahrain is that NBR usually also scrutinizes these fields during an audit. And if the amounts are found to be incorrect, or if they see that there is no amount, reflected in these fields, they will start their questioning. Then comes the adjustment column. What I have, personally seen here is that there is a lot of confusion with respect to the utilization or the purpose of the adjustment column of the VAT field. So this column also needs to be utilized, particularly when it comes to adjustment made to any previous period transactions. Reconciliation of VAT data with the financials should be done regularly. If businesses are filing a monthly return, this needs to be done on a monthly basis at least. If businesses are filing a quarterly return, this needs to be done on a quarterly basis at least. This will basically ensure that there is no miss out on reporting of any transactions. And secondly, this is a very common requirement from an audit side also, which NBR will ask for. And also do revisit any input tax credit adjustments if they are required to be made.
Okay, so a lot of things that we have observed that go wrong at the time of a filing of a VAT return. So do we have any unique observations for a UAE for the compliances that we have done till now? Amrita?
What Devina mentioned, I think so. Mainly, we have covered all the observations we have seen in UAE. Just a couple more. The first being, and the most common, is recharge between group companies. Companies generally tend to ignore these, considering that it's a group company, but these can be subject to VAT 0% or 5%. But it has to be assessed, and then correct treatment should be adopted for recharges to group companies. And the second one is something we touched upon earlier, is reconciliation of import of goods that is auto-populated on the portal. The FTA has made it clear that the businesses have to ensure that the amount that is auto-populated for import of goods is correct, and if there are any adjustments, that those adjustments should be reflected in the next field in the VAT return. What businesses generally tend to do is consider whatever is auto-populated and just assume that it's right, and FTA has considered everything.
Wow. So a lot of unique things when it comes to a UAE as well. And at my level, what I find unique for a UAE is that you need to report your data as per the 7 Emirates, which is going to be a task that most of our clients see who have got a presence in most of the jurisdictions. So I believe that will be an additional, the compliance burden, and we have seen a lot of clients going kind of wrong in that. There could be a corrective action taken once, but yes, this is a significant area to be looked at. The next one is now that we all know that what could go wrong at the time of a return filing. Of course, like any law, there will be opportunities given to correct a VAT return also. So starting from a Bahrain, I wanted to know that if I file a return which is not right, what are the avenues that I have to go ahead with doing a correction of that, and if yes, what could be the consequences of this? That do I go scot free, or do I have some kind of a penalty over there? So starting with a Bahrain, Devina.
So errors up to 5,000 dinars of VAT amount can be shown as a correction in the following VAT return. If the VAT amount is exceeding 5,000 dinars, or a business has missed out on showing it or reporting it in the correction field of the next return, the only option left is to go back to the original return and self-amend it. So self-amendment will essentially replace the originally filed return with the revised return, which is filed through a self-amendment. And usually when a self-amendment is done, businesses are required to give a detailed explanation why they are doing this amendment. This will be scrutinized by NBR. If there is going to be any additional VAT payout because of this self-amendment, the system will automatically compute a late filing and late payment penalty. And what we have seen is that usually at a time of the amendment, a business cannot have a recourse to dispute or ask for a waiver of the penalty. The only option left is to approach the appeals committee or the review committee of NBR requesting a penalty waiver. Then another aspect, Ashish, which we have seen here is that now that the audit and assessment has gone live, whenever the audit is concluded, NBR, based on its assessment, will automatically upload a revised version of the return on the portal. And then it's on the taxpayer whether they want to accept it or reject it. Again, if they reject it, the only recourse is to file an appeal or go to the review committee. What is most important here is that if NBR has already started the supervision or the inspection procedure for any taxpayers, they will not have the option to go back and amend the return. So ensure that the filing is correct, and if at all there is a need to revise the filing, make sure that it is done before NBR starts its assessment.
Wow. So, I would say that filing a VAT return which is wrong has a lot of burden in terms of going ahead and doing the revision. So this has been the notings for Bahrain. So from a UAE perspective, do we have anything different?
I would say it's similar to Bahrain. The thresholds are different, and you can make a revised return, which is called a voluntary disclosure, before the audit, during like if you have received an audit notice, and even after you get the audit notice. So there's no restriction on that. And I think so penalties, like Devina mentioned, there are penalties here in UAE also if you are making a voluntary disclosure application. Fortunately, there has been a substantial relaxation in the penalties that are applicable for voluntary disclosure filings, which will be applicable from 28th of June 2021. So, what the tax authorities here in UAE are promoting is a self-assessment and a revision of return if there has been an error or an omission during the original filing, and the variable penalty which is applicable for filing a voluntary disclosure is dependent on when you file the return and not on the payment of the return. So, if you are filing a voluntary disclosure soon after original filing of the return, there is a lower penalty as compared to filing a voluntary disclosure 2 or 3 years down the line. So what we usually recommend businesses is that, okay, if you have done the return in a hurry, or you have missed out something in the return, have a periodic reviews in place to identify any error or omission as soon as possible.
Wow. Okay. Thank you so much for that. Given that we have so much amount of learning within our team, that of a UAE and a Bahrain now, UAE being the major one where a VAT went live on 1st of January 2018 in one go. So we have seen a lot of audits, we have seen a lot of the penalties. Now there is like a reduction of the penalty also. And Bahrain also, we have seen audits in a very short a period of time, and the department in Bahrain is really proactive, going behind everybody who is non-compliant from a VAT law perspective. Now, if I take the learnings from these two jurisdictions, I would like to call upon my colleague Deepak from Oman office in order to just give us a brief that how the compliances from a VAT perspective in Oman may look. Deepak, sorry to put you into the spot. I know that the official the guidelines or the return format per se is not out. But as you have also worked on VAT compliances for the Bahrain in the past, and you do as of today, I just wanted to share with our audience that what do we see coming here into Oman. Deepak, sorry, you're not audible.
Thanks. Sure, Ashish. To start with, as you may know, that it is being roughly 2 months since Oman has went live with VAT. It is too early to comment on the same. However, we expect VAT compliance in Oman to mature over the period of time. As highlighted in previous slide, VAT return reporting in Oman will certainly be at a summary level, similar to that of UAE and Bahrain. Having said that, businesses in Oman are required to keep invoice level details, information of sales and purchases to substantiate information or details they are submitting in their VAT return. The aspects of having detailed information from sales and purchase has been very clearly explained by my fellow colleagues from UAE and Bahrain. To add further, we envisage Oman VAT compliance to be unique in few areas. First one is seeking approvals. As you may know that the way Oman law and regulation have been drafted, it seems businesses in Oman may be required to seek various approvals from the tax authorities, like for issuing a simplified tax invoice, availing pre-registration credits, conducting input tax adjustments for loss and damages, etc., which is very unique in Oman. Also, facility for filing the application for VAT deferment on import of goods is enabled by the Oman tax authority on the portal, which is very recently has been enabled. Second important area to focus is on corporate tax return versus the VAT return. As Oman already has a well-established corporate tax, it is very important to align information submitted in the corporate tax return vis-a-vis the information submitted in the VAT return to avoid any adverse action, which means that there would be a requirement to have three-way reconciliation, FS versus VAT return, and eventually it will be versus the corporate tax return. Especially for foreign companies having a tax file number in Oman, from a corporate tax perspective, such businesses should understand their VAT obligation registration in Oman as well and do their VAT compliances accordingly. As you may know, Oman already has a withholding tax, and the same is applicable on payment made to non-resident suppliers in Oman for purchase of any services, which is somewhat similar to a reverse charge mechanism provision under VAT. Businesses should also focus on the information from the withholding tax perspective as well as the VAT return perspective as well. So these are the few areas where uniqueness can be expected from Oman VAT compliance requirement. Over to you, Ashish.
Thank you, Deepak. So I believe that from a compliance side, Oman could be a jurisdiction where you need to really connect with the tax authority and get all these various permissions, approvals, whether in a manual form or online, before you really meet a VAT compliance. As Deepak said that filing the VAT return the first time, and as Oman is going live with a VAT in a phased manner, claiming a pre-registration credit will be a significant area where the tax authority on an application has to specifically approve this. So with this, and I would like to thank all the speakers on the call to give us a brief of what they have seen on a practical level. It was really insightful. I will quickly move on to the challenges that we have seen till now. I'll just do a quick recap. We have to see that our ERP is going to be configured to see that whether it gives you an adequate data which is going to suffice for a VAT compliance. Maintaining the documents is a very crucial aspect. Looking at VAT credits in terms of optimizing the cash flow is a very significant area. And the last but not the least, that the VAT compliance does not end by where you need to just file a return. The maintenance of the documentation and ready availability of the documentation is a very crucial aspect that we need to focus on as a business from a VAT perspective in the broader GCC region and comply with the jurisdictional requirements specifically. Now, for managing all of this, whatever we have said till now, we have devised a service offering from our side, which we call as a VAT compliance outsourcing, where if you are a regional business, you don't have local teams, or if you are short staffed, or for that matter, if you're a family office and working on a logic that there are only one person in a jurisdiction, BDO is there to help you in terms of onboarding the VAT compliance function at our end. What we like to do is to focus one time on streamlining the technical positions and documenting them. Whatever be the positions of the past, there will be a need to document the positions into a place where if your teams are going to change, okay, they are also aware that what is the technical view that we have taken for a particular matter. Then these views should be ideally fine-tuned into an ERP. The ERP should certainly have what we call as a tax matrix, or what we call as a tax engine in the ERP sense, where 90% of the determination of the tax should be automatically done. So you sign off the logic, you are pretty sure that your sales data is in an accurate format, so you don't have to really revisit each and every time and see that whether my at least determination is right. Then, as we will be working as your team from a perspective of VAT compliance, we would like to get access to your ERP systems as well. So when it comes to a quarter end, once the financial data, be it a month or a quarter, the BDO can come online, take the data dumps that we want, and we create an online storage where all of this is going to be securely stored as per the data protection laws of each of the jurisdictions. So these will be the one-time things in terms of aligning positions, fine-tuning it in the ERP, getting access, who will be doing what, having a responsibility matrix over there, because there will be very limited things which will be done by your team now, and setting up a common storage where all of this data will be stored. So we don't have to come back to your team and ask, okay, that you give me so and so samples. Whatever are the transaction level documents will be stored in a cloud based platform. So whether it is 100% review from our end or whether it is a sample based, all that logic and the basis of preparation can be stored over there. And once the compliances is done, all the data will be stored over there overall. Now, going forward, when it comes to filing of a return, BDO would be taking on a limited function, which in our traditional VAT, return review will ideally be done by your team, which is preparing of a VAT register. So if your team, you believe, is spending a lot of time on this, we are happy to take that burden over here and provide a VAT compliance outsourcing where we will be making the registers, we will be doing the quality review of the registers, we will be doing the quality review of the document. In the current day and age, can be set up online and it can be done online. So once we get an access to your systems and the document storage, all of this is going to become very seamless. Obviously we need to confirm to your team in terms of the data that has been provided to us or made available to us is in a proper manner. Then we will be preparing a VAT return for you. Okay, the VAT return will be backed up by the various registers that we want. We will be doing the reconciliation with the books of accounts and identify the differences, that if there is an audit in the future, why a particular period of financial records are not matching with the VAT records. Then we will provide guidance on the accounting entries. Of course, the passing of the entries will be done by your team, but we will summarize this. This is, say, the VAT credit to be reversed. Then we will provide support in terms of filing a VAT return and preparing the guidance note or the documentation in terms of caveats, that if there are certain things that which we have not taken care of. So by giving you this whole supply chain as a service offering, we are basically onboarding the VAT compliance function for you, because you have seen in the past hour or so that the compliance requirements over here are very high from a documentation side, from various sides. So this we believe will be a very great offering for you, and we will be happy to discuss. After the webinar, you will be getting a flyer from our side in terms of detailing the service offering that we have in managing the VAT compliance outsourcing function for you. So with this, I will be concluding the webinar for today. You are already connected to your regional team members for each of the offices. Please do reach out to us. We will be conducting a series of webinars in the future on this. The next one maybe will be a country specific one, specific to a UAE, Bahrain and Oman, once the reporting format for Oman is out. And we look forward to work with you on managing the VAT compliance function overall. Now, I'm sure there will be a lot of questions, and the questions would have come. So as we have some time, we have already crossed the time, but we will take one or two questions. Over to you, Amrita.
Yes, Ashish, we have received a lot of questions. Since we have already crossed the time limit, we'll take a few only. The first one is regarding the first return deadline for Oman. If you could advise on that, what is the first due date for filing the VAT returns in Oman?
Deepak, you want to take that?
Sure. Thanks, Amrita. As per law, the first return has to be filed within 30 days from the end of the tax period, which means that the first return from 16th of April to 30th of June, we need to file our return on or before 30th of July 2021. I hope this clarifies.
Okay,
Thank you, Deepak.
The next question, I think, so would be common for all the three jurisdictions is regarding the documents that have to be maintained for export or zero-rated goods outside any of the countries. So from UAE perspective, if it's okay, I can quickly summarize. You need three documents to be kept. The first one is an invoice, which shows that you have sold these goods. And the second one is official evidence, which is basically the export customs declaration for showing that the goods are physically exported from UAE to outside UAE. And the third one is a commercial evidence, which shows the movement of goods from UAE to outside UAE. This is basically an airway bill or a shipping bill, or if the goods are transported through land, then a document which shows movement of goods from UAE to outside UAE. Maybe Terina, if you could quickly summarize.
Yeah.
Sure. Thank you, Amrita.
I believe that.
So similar to UAE, Bahrain also has the same requirements where we are required to maintain those three set of documents, that is the tax invoice, then the official evidence, which would be the bill of, which would be the customs bayan for export of goods from Bahrain to outside Bahrain, and lastly the commercial evidence.
So pretty much similar for each of the jurisdictions, I think so. Oman is also pretty much similar from a law perspective, but we will see that how this is going to evolve in the future, and if any specific guidance is given by the tax authority in terms of the documentation to be maintained for Oman. If we have any further questions, Amrita?
We have a lot of questions, but given that it is for different jurisdiction, it would be best if we reach out to each team separately. Just one last question, which can benefit a lot of attendees, is regarding how soon the periodic review should be done. Every 3 months, every year. So if you could just give some guidance on that, that would be beneficial, and then we can end the webinar.
Sure. See, so the means I would say there will be two phases over here. Okay, if your team, you as the client, are going to do the VAT compliances routinely, then I would say the VAT compliance review should at least be done on a yearly basis for sure, because when it comes to audit, okay, the first point that any the regulator will ask you is going to be the reconciliation. Say you have reported a turnover worth of 100 in financials, but your VAT return shows a 120. Okay, that could be the reason, because the VAT law works on a totally different logic, and IFRS, if you are going to follow that, how you are going to do the recording of the revenue, there could be timing gaps, things like a retention which you are going to record as a revenue, but from a VAT perspective, maybe that will be built at a later point of time. So all of these areas come into play where the reconciliation plays a very big role. And what we have observed is that, okay, usually the time frame to file a VAT return, as we have heard for all the jurisdictions, is usually a month from the end of the month or end a month from the end of a quarter, it is very small. So suppose if you are going to close the calendar year January to December, and you are going to file a VAT return for Q4 by the January of the next year, but by the time you will be doing your audit of a financial statement, that might come to the month of April, May, June, depending upon the jurisdiction. So there could be a lot of cases where you have reported VAT turnover on a higher basis and which may not be able to match with your financials as such. So this could be one of the trigger points where if you are doing the VAT compliances by yourself, the review should at least be done on an yearly basis for sure. Okay, so I think so that's it for the day. We have gone through a lot of things for today. Of course, this webinar was not meant to be that going on to the technical queries, because as I said, each of the jurisdictions have their own uniqueness in terms of the law. So as I said, that we will be conducting separate webinars for each of the jurisdictions, and in the meantime, if you have any burning issues, please do reach out to us. And after the webinar, with obviously the feedback of the webinar, you will get a flyer from our side summarizing the VAT compliance outsourcing offering that we have. So thank you so much from a BDO side. Have a good day and have a good week ahead. Thank you.